I know what you're thinking, and I know. I've been slacking in literally every single department. I've been slacking on my reading goal. I haven't been watching movies like I wanted to, and I'm slacking on making these videos every month. So today you're getting a 3-in-1. Everything that I read, watched, and listened to in May, June, and July. Yes, I'm aware that August is almost over and I should have probably waited and added August into here. I have a lot to go through. No more wasting time. Let's get into it. Let's start off with all the books that I read the past 3 months. In May, I read 2 books. Definitely not my best reading month, but it is what it is. The first one actually ended up being one of my favorite books I've read this year, and that's Chain Gang All-Stars. I loved this book. This is about the prison system, and in this universe, if you're in prison, you can either stay in prison and complete your sentence, or you can join the CAPE program, which is essentially you fighting other prisoners for the entertainment of the country. And if you're still alive at the end of a certain period of time, you're free. And it's about these 2 women that are in the program, and they're like the best of the best. They're also in a relationship, and they end up having to fight each other at the end. Something that I found really cool about this book, following the story, there's little facts added in at the bottom about the current American prison system. For example, incarcerated people suffer a disproportionate number of foodborne illnesses. I loved this book. The second book I read in May is Human Acts. This is about the Gwangju uprising in South Korea, and it follows a couple different people during and after. For example, it follows a boy who's working to help reunite the dead bodies with their family. There's also this woman who's trying to write about what's happening, and they're censoring her because they don't want people to know the truth. Another book I really enjoyed. In June, I read 4 books. The first one I read is Writers and Lovers. I'll be honest, I don't remember much about this book. I know there's this woman who's a writer, and she's working as a waitress at a restaurant, and she is dating people, and she's trying to make her big break. I can't tell you much more than that, to be completely honest with you. This next book is another episode of me hating something that's really popular. We have The Favorites. I had no intention of reading this because I was under the impression that this was a romance book, and I don't particularly enjoy reading romance, but honestly, there's absolutely nothing romantic about what happens in this book. If I was in this situation, which I'll get into, don't worry, if I was in this situation, you would have to take me out in the street and shoot me. That's not a life I want to live. But like I was saying, I had no intention of reading this book, but then I saw people whose book opinions I trust talk about how great this book was, and unfortunately they led me astray. This is about 2 ice skaters. They've been skating together forever, they've been friends forever, they've been dating since they were kids. They're trying to go to the Olympics, but they're poor, so they don't have the same resources as a lot of these other kids do. They end up getting there, right? They don't win. Then there's some drama, there's some mess. That's the one thing I'll give this book. I love reading about drama. I truly do. I will say though, at the end, they kind of start losing the plot. It started to sound like they switched gears and started writing a thriller book. Because why are these competitors trying to kill each other? And it's a whodunit. Why is there blood in my room sort of situation? I didn't like that. Another thing I didn't like, this is written like it's a documentary. And when you're watching a documentary and it has the people doing their confessionals, it has that. I kind of hated that. To be completely honest, I felt one, a lot of the people they had unnecessary. We don't need to hear what they have to say. Also, wasn't in love with the writing. At the end of the chapters, the sentences they would leave off on were just so corny sometimes. I don't know how else to describe it other than kind of Wattpad-esque. It felt kind of juvenile. Not to be mean, but it did. Heath, please, we made it this far. This is our dream. No, Katerina. He sighed and slipped his hand into mine. It's your dream. It just feels childish to me. Now, onto the relationship. Like I said, these 2 skaters have been dating since they were children. Obviously, the pressure of trying to get to the Olympics in such a competitive sport, it got to them. They break up. The body is not even cold. He runs and sleeps with her rival, her biggest rival. That same night, he quits skating altogether. But one day he shows up again, decides he's going to skate again. Who's his partner? That rival. The main girl and him, who used to date, I don't remember anyone's names. They kind of reconnect. She's aren't you with this new girl? He's no, we might live together and we might skate together, but no, we're not dating. And they weren't, but they were sleeping together. Conveniently left that out. The rival gets pregnant. He knocks her up while he's trying to like rekindle his romance with his ex. At the end of the book, where they're like, where are they now? The original couple, they're back together, but it's on again, off again for over like a decade, almost 20 years. They're in this situationship, just back and forth, on and off, as he's like co-parenting this child he has with her biggest rival. If I was in that situation, you would have to shoot me. I wouldn't be in that situation. I simply wouldn't. The next book I read was The Mad Wife. This takes place in the 50s. It's a bunch of these housewives that live in the same neighborhood. They're like friends. They always get together. This one housewife, Lulu, she becomes obsessed with this house across the street. She's like, that's the perfect house. A new family moves into that house. There's obviously a new housewife that joins the group. And she like becomes obsessed with the house, with the wife. She's like, something's not right with her. She's a little weird. I'm going to get down to the bottom of it. Now, an important thing to note, our main character, Lulu, she did just give birth. She has a little postpartum depression. Very normal. However, back then, it wasn't. Her husband's like, oh, you're crazy. You need to go to the doctor. The doctor's like, yeah, you're crazy. Here's some medication. Now, I hate to agree with a man, but Lulu, she is a little off her rocker because she breaks into our neighbor's house. Because she's like, I know there's something up with this couple and I'm going to get down to the bottom of it. Turns out the wife got a lobotomy. And she's like, oh my God, this woman's husband is going to try to convince my husband that I need a lobotomy because I'm depressed and I'm already on medication, which is like taboo. They're going to try to lobotomize me. And then there's a little twist. Then the last book I read in June is Beloved. This is the first Toni Morrison book I've ever read. I would love to read more. I loved this book. This is about a woman who used to be a slave. She escaped. One day, this random woman shows up and she like kind of like takes her in and lets her stay with her family. She's a ghost. And it's actually her daughter that died. Sorry, this is a lot of spoilers. But she goes by the name Beloved because that's what's written on her tombstone. Great book. Highly recommend. On to July, I read 3 books this month. The first book I read is Best Offer Wins. There's this couple, they want to start a family, but they currently live in an apartment. And they're like, this isn't big enough for a family. We need a house. The housing market is bad. This woman has a friend who like kind of gave her a tip. She's like, this house is about to go up for sale. And she becomes obsessed with this house. She's like, I need this house. I will do anything to get this house. And listen, when I say anything, I mean anything. She's a little cuckoo. The next book I read is Rejection. This is a book of short stories about different people handling rejection. For example, the very first story, it's this guy, he is a self-proclaimed feminist, and he can't figure out why no woman wants him. And let me just say this. The way that this author writes characters who are just so disgusting, I was uncomfortable. Spooky, ooky stuff. Obviously, like most short story collections, there's some that you enjoy more than others, and there's some where you're like, when is this gonna end? And I feel like it's the same with this. And then the last book is The Make-Believe, a memoir of magic and madness. This is a memoir by Hannah Murray, who I know from Skins. I was a mentally ill teenager on Tumblr. Of course, I watched Skins. She's also on Game of Thrones. I didn't know that. I've never seen Game of Thrones. I have no intention of ever watching Game of Thrones. Basically, she's going through like a rough time in her life. She's depressed. She comes across this woman who's like a healer. She's like, I can provide spiritual healing. And she essentially gets roped into this like cult that thinks they can like heal all the evil in the world by their spiritual healing and magic, like real magic. And it's her story of like falling deeper into this cult and literally going into psychosis. I enjoyed it. I love a good memoir though. Moving on to movies. In May, I watched 3 new movies. The first one was Hereditary. This is a horror movie. A problem I find myself facing with horror movies is that none of them scare me. Don't know what that's about. Anyways, there's this grandma. She dies. And after she dies, everything just starts to go to shit. Because this grandma was like the leader of some sort of like demonic group. I'm not going to act like I understood the entire thing. Because here's the thing. This is a me problem. And it's going to come up multiple times as I'm talking about these movies. I'm always doing something else when I put a movie on. I'm never giving a movie 100% my attention. So if I miss things, yeah, that's my problem. So sorry. So when she dies, her family starts to feel it. Her granddaughter, dead. Head off. Her grandson, this demonic group's like trying to get him to be their new leader. Because they like need a man or something. I don't know. The next movie I watched was Send Help. I don't know why I was under the impression that this was like a serious movie. It was goofy. It was very goofy. Basically, this woman, Rachel McAdams, she works at this company, and then this new guy, Dylan O'Brien, comes in and starts running things, and all these men are just being so mean to this woman, and they like have to go on a trip somewhere for work, so they're all on this flight. Oh, plane crash. Her and Dylan O'Brien are the only ones who survive. Suddenly, he needs her. He spent so long tormenting her. Suddenly, he needs her help. She's like obsessed with like Survivor, and she knows like how to do all this stuff. And she is having the time of her life stranded on this island. And she starts like getting a crush on this guy. And she's like, if we stay on this island, we can be together, and this could be like the perfect life. She starts like preventing help. It's kind of wild and it's goofy. Third movie I watched in May is Challengers. The only thing I have to say about that is, hey, put me in, coach. In June, I only watched 2 movies. The first one was I saw The TV Glow. Are y'all gonna jump me if I said this movie bored me? Because it did. And here's the thing. Clearly, I'm not like the intended audience. And I understand the importance of the movie and the message it is sending and why other people love it and it's important to them. I didn't feel that though. But you know what? Visually, beautiful. The soundtrack, fab. And then the next movie I watched, a new favorite of mine, To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. I cannot believe I've never seen this movie before because it's very much up my alley. These drag queens are going on like a cross-country road trip, and their car breaks down in like this conservative town, and they just start like affecting everybody in this small town's lives and making them so much better. And I don't know if it's because I watched this movie like at the start of my period. I was like sobbing watching this. Like I just thought it was so beautiful. It was just a feel-good, lighthearted movie. And like I'm sitting there watching it, I'm like, this is sisterhood. All these women just coming together and like helping each other and making each other feel good. And it's just like it's truly beautiful. Then not a movie, but in June I did watch Love Island. I had no intention of watching Love Island this year because last year I felt like I got a little too invested. I was fully on the Nicolandria train. I'm like, you know what? Cannot do that again. But then I saw the first look for the start of Casa Amor when they think they're going to do the heart rate challenge and they send the boys to Casa. And I'm like, okay, now you got me. Because as we've gone over, I love drama, I love mess. I watched from that point onward. I feel like I didn't need to watch the first half. Like I knew what I needed to know. I voted for Bryce and Trinity, as I should. One thing about me, I'm always going to be on the right side of the Love Island vote. On to July, I watched 4 new movies. The first one, Blue Valentine. Reading like all the reviews on Letterboxd about this, everyone's like, oh, it's so sad. This felt like a horror movie to me. Like this was scarier than Hereditary in my mind. Again, may this type of relationship never find me. And I'm not trying to victim blame. Obviously, the man's in the wrong, as he usually is, but there were some red flags. For example, when she finds out she's pregnant, sees this guy and he's like, oh, what's wrong? She's like, I don't want to tell you. And he's like, tell me. And they're standing on a bridge. He's like, I'll jump. He's literally threatening to kill himself because you don't want to tell him what's wrong. That would have been it for me. Personally, that would have been it. He would have said, I'm going to jump, and I would have said, do it. Then I watched Nope. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what happened in this movie. Because like I said, I'm not always fully paying attention when I put on a movie. This is one of those cases. Something about aliens in the sky. If you look up at them, you die. There's also like a monkey who kills people on the set of a show. And that like really traumatized the like one survivor. That's all I remember. Speaking of aliens, the next movie I watched was Begonia. There's these 2 guys who are like really into conspiracy theories. And it's honestly really hard to watch because it's like very real how some people fall so deep these like internet theories and they believe them and then they like take drastic measures. They think that the CEO of this pharmaceutical company is an alien. So they kidnap her and are like experimenting on her and they're like, take me to your leader, essentially. Unfortunately, they were correct. She actually was an alien. Who would have thought? And then the last movie I watched is Paris is Burning. This movie is about ball culture in New York in the 80s. You follow different trans women and drag queens, specifically Black trans women and Black drag queens, who really created this community and culture. And it's beautiful. Last but not least, let's talk about new music. In May, the new releases that I was loving were Lincoln Bee by Kalela, Superficial by Isaiah Rashad, Charter Spec by They Are Gutting a Body of Water and Horse Jumper of Love, Iffy Iffy by Le Seraphim, Attaboy by Jay Stevens, Keep It to Yourself by Love Spells, Handle by Raven Lene, Big Dog by Genesis Owusu, Shoplifting by Lip Critic, I Disappear by New Constellations, and No Surprise by Bleach 93. In June, the new music releases that I was loving include De Moi by Canal, Secret Language by Ryan Beatty, Candyland by Natanya, Hanging Out to Dry by Florence Road, Remaining by Paranol, What's Wrong with Me by Olivia Rodrigo and Robert Smith, Sun Is Set by Biba Doobie, Lost Boys by Phoebe Bridgers, Belly Breathing by Josh Conway, TV Guide by Ben Staples, and I Got a Gun by Chanpan. And last but not least, the new music releases that I was loving in July are The Bridge by Kalela and Pink Panthers, Long Way, Long Ride by Yeonjun, Pop Girl by Lexi Liu and Eve, Like I Do by Ariana Grande, Kiss 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 by Flower of Love, Wanna Cry by Nina Geraci and Porter Robinson, Sugar Trap by Jay Stevens, Jasmine 17 by Sid, Lover's Grief by Nia Archives, and Caught in a Jam by Portraits of Tracy. Now, obviously, while we're on the topic of music, I also have to show you the new CDs I've acquired for my collection. Most of these are secondhand. There's a few that I bought new, you'll easily be able to tell. But first, I noticed whenever I show you my new CDs, I never include K-pop albums. I don't know what's up with that. So let me include one. No Labels Part 2 by Yeonjun. Obviously, that's my man. Then another one I bought new, Man's Best Friend by Sabrina Carpenter. I love Sabrina Carpenter, but I literally never owned any of her CDs until now. So I saw this at Walmart and I was like, why not? Then Rocksteady by No Doubt, Ray of Light by Madonna, Miss E, So Addictive by Missy Elliott, Dookie by Green Day, White Pony by Deftones, 8 Arms to Hold You by Veruca Salt, Title by Fiona Apple, The Writings on the Wall by Destiny's Child, and last but not least, another new pickup for me, Pedal by Ariana Grande. Obviously, I know there was a lot of mixed reviews on this album. I love it. I absolutely adore it. I think it's one of her best. But yeah, that's everything that I read, watched, and listened to these past few months. Hopefully I can get back to doing this regularly so I don't have to do a big catch-up like this again. No promises.